to nod on podcasts.
Yes, that was the reference I was looking for. That was the reference I was looking for. Sorry.
And the thing is, they took a 3210, covered it in diamonds, and it was actually more destructible than a 3210 in its natural state.
If I'm sitting in, it's nice, but I'd never trade in my Subaru for a Rolls Royce.
No, I'll have to disagree there.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 5th podcast for the Pro Detailer magazine. Today, as ever, we are joined by Mr. James Keeley.
Hello there.
And Mr. Ian Seeley.
Hello.
And myself, Bert Yule. And today we've got lots of interesting topics to talk about. So what I wanted to hit on initially would be brands and where are they now, because there are some brands that have come and gone and there was a lot of noise and then there was nothing. And that will follow into brands that we think are on the up and up and that are worth keeping an eye out. We were then going to touch on white label products and not necessarily put it to bed, but talk about when is a white label product and is that a bad thing or a good thing? Because there are a lot of brands appearing where it is effectively a brand, a look, a feel, a price range, and not necessarily a novel product. So there's lots to be discussed there, and certainly not negative because there's lots of strong white labeled in some circumstances products that are worth talking about. Then we wanted to touch on mental health for detailers as well, because detailers, both in normal life and sort of in lockdown times, go through a lot of different stages, and we're aware of a lot of mental health problems that some people have as a consequence of lifestyle, and also of the kind of the nature, the sort of character that makes a detailer is also potentially susceptible or more commonly susceptible to various sort of mental health risks, I guess, would be the best way of putting it. And then we were finally going to touch on lockdown activities and what we've been up to while we've been restricted, really. So, to kick it off, I was going to ask James to talk about a brand that he feels, we'll just talk about a particular brand of his choosing and the progress of it over the last sort of 5-10 years.
Yeah, the one for me that really sort of, it didn't shock me, but it was a surprise to see it sort of never really take off on a big scale, but then vanished very quickly. Mm-hmm. And the brand still exists, and that's Fireball Korea. And I think from memory, the original stockist was UF.
They did. They were exclusive, but they were definitely...
Yeah, that was definitely the place that I saw it.
Yeah.
Because back in the early days, I was buying Nanolix through them. But they just the products looked great. And I remember at Waxstock what was the first Ricoh Waxstock? 2016? 2015?
15 or 16.
Well, it started in 2012 because that's when we launched.
And it was 2 years at Peterborough.
So actually
2014. 2014. So 2014, Fireball Korea had a presence there. I'm not sure if it was with a reseller, but they had some ceramic coatings that were sort of 500-600 quid a bottle. Mm-hmm. But the products looked great. The packaging was fantastic. It was like a very simplistic, clear bottle packaging with just a small white label on it.
And Fireball did well in the mega test as well, didn't it? The wax mega test.
Certainly in the gloss measuring. Yeah. And it was very curious. It arrived in a sort of a strange, glittery bag that you'd expect in medieval times would hold sort of gold sovereigns or something. And it came with a most bizarre little brush for reasons that I still to this day have no idea what for.
You dust off your tin in between uses.
Possibly.
Clean the threads, maybe. Clean the threads on the tin. No, but it's... but for me, that was like the first sort of Korean brand that we saw, certainly advertised anyway. And then we've seen quite a few since then. They're quite a big player now, aren't they, Koreans?
Yeah, it kind of gave way to Gion, I think. Is it? Took over in terms of brand.
So there was a rumour, and it is just a rumour. I've got no evidence to back it up. But there was a rumour that, obviously, this sort of will lead nicely onto our white label section later. But there was a rumour that Fireball Korea was buying products from TAC Systems in Korea, which is one of the largest manufacturing companies out there. And the rumour was that Gion were also buying products from TAC Systems, which is quite common. I mean, there are a lot of big brands, and we'll talk about that later, that buy in products specifically designed for them. Now, I don't know if it was a coincidence or something happened higher up, but it seemed to be that wherever Gion appeared, Fireball would vanish from. And that's kind of what happened here.
Like the Clark Kent and Superman.
Yeah, they were never seen in the same place at the same time.
I have a pair of glasses on there, and all of a sudden,
You look like Gion. No, I've just got glasses on. It's so I don't know if that is true. It could be absolutely wild hearsay, but it was really odd. Gion was this new Korean brand that appeared, and then almost simultaneously, we lost Fireball.
Yeah, I mean, a good example is that I know Clean and Shiny, for example, had Fireball in the early days as well. I remember it being on there because around that kind of local area, around Ashvale and all that, all the detailers and stuff getting hold of it. And then it pretty much disappeared as soon as Gion came on the scene for CNS. So we don't know. It is pure conjecture, but it is an interesting...
It's a coincidence, but could be a coincidence. But that was one of the rumours that was flying around at the time.
Yeah, and that fusion wax, you're absolutely right. Now I've had a chance to think about it. It was a sort of deep yellowy orange colour, and it was really, really impressive.
It wasn't cheap either, was it? It was about 60 quid a tin.
Yeah, it was definitely upper mid-range, I'd say. It wasn't Swiss wax, but...
The Fireball pricing was also pretty much in line with Gion's pricing. And obviously Nanalex, similar brand, but made in Germany. Again, similar sort of pricing, sort of product range. There are they're all
variations. Premium market position.
Yeah, exactly. Sort of the sort of G-Technic, Swissvax, Labo Cosmetica sort of top sector.
Third, yeah.
But yeah, they just went up in smoke. They just vanished. And the brand is still going. That's the crazy thing.
Yeah.
Is that the brand is still going. So if you go to Europe, you can still find Fireball Korea at resellers.
Well, I think there's still a UK rep or some company bringing it through. So it's just not, it hasn't grown the wings that we thought it would. When we first saw it, we thought this is different, this is genuine, this is, nicely presented. I thought it was going to be the next big thing. But
maybe it did grow the wings and then they got clipped.
Yeah.
One thing we're not considering as well, if you think in that sort of that time frame, that's around the same time that 4G came out. And we all know the cellular spectrums do affect what goes on in the world.
Well, without
4G killed Fireball. I'm just saying, throwing it out there.
Without confirming or denying any rumours, the other side is CLP and labelling and that sort of thing. And I know that in the early days, at least, products coming over from the Far East, particularly, did struggle with meeting some of the requirements because I think initially we were a small market, so what's the point in changing all bottling and labelling and packaging just for little old England / Europe?
Well, they didn't struggle, they just didn't do it.
No.
It was as simple as that, they just didn't do it.
Now they're getting better.
Yeah, when I think it was, 2017, the REACH regulations changed for labelling, bottling and capping.
Well, they came compulsory. So the new regs were, I think they came out 2011, 2012 and said, this is what we're going to do. And you get 5 years to instigate it.
Like a grace period.
A grace period. And then I think they even extended that grace period by a year or two. But yeah, the answer is that UK companies like the likes of G-Technic have been compliant much more, from dot, so to speak. Whereas the ones coming from a far don't. And talking to other companies, another one we're going to talk about at some point is Soft 99, and they're from Japan. And it's not that they haven't got regulation. If anything, you could say they've got much harder regulation than we do. It's just that it's different.
Yeah.
And so, they're having to change everything to come over here, which has been a big kind of played a big role in the rebirth of Soft 99, which we'll go into a bit later.
Well, the thing with Soft 99 is that it was initially an imported product from Japan, wasn't it? Because Jackie had it in the UK.
Yeah, Jackie Wong, who's Nippon Shine.
Yeah, and it was an imported product from Japan.
Yes.
So, in theory, with the what's the phrase?
Well, low volume.
Low quantity import. If it was under 1,000 kilograms per year, it didn't necessarily need to adhere to CLP.
Yeah.
The issue was that the quantity started getting higher, and then Soft 99 obviously realised that there was a market in Europe for it. Then all of a sudden, they needed a European branding and a team to manage Europe.
It's the team and the investment, and that's where Damien comes in. So Soft 99 Europe, who I went now 2 years ago to see the relaunch of Fusso in Germany, in Berlin.
Yeah.
And blimey, the money that was spent on that.
Was that when you got lost on the train network?
Yeah, I got to the cheap airport at Berlin, I then got a little confused, and I went to the hotel, which was just next to the airport, and they gave me a free pass for public transport in Berlin, which I thought was amazing. And so originally I was going to get an Uber, and an Uber would have been 60, 70 quid to where I needed to go. So I thought, sod it, let's use this free thing. So I followed my Google Maps to what I thought was a train station. Well, I thought I was looking for a bus station because that was the route that Google suggested, but it turns out I can't tell the difference between a bus and a train. So I was at this bus station waiting for a bus with a certain number of letters at the top.
Privilege upbringing.
And anyway, I waited for about an hour and no buses with this lettering arrived or anything close to it. So I then, in my best English, asked somebody there who thought I was curious, and they said, yes, you are at the train station. I said, but I can't see any trains. They said, yes, it's underground, and pointed me to a little door that went down to this massive, great train station.
The U-Bahnhof.
Yes, it was something of that nature.
Underground train station. That's
Yeah,
what
it was
stands
underground,
for.
but the trains are above ground, so they come up above the ground once you've got onto them. It was
Yeah,
bizarre.
it's like going on the Northern Line.
Yeah, not done that particularly often, has to be said.
Yeah, you get past sort of, I think when does he come up? Just before Highgate. Your sister lives there.
It's the brown one, isn't it?
Black.
No,
Northern.
the brown one's northern.
What, the sister?
No, Black one's Northern Line, isn't it? It goes all the way to High Barnet and
The
Morden.
brown one was northern line. I haven't read a tube map in a long time.
No, Brown Line was
Oh, was it? No, the city's red.
because the old go from the pink to the brown, Baker Street. Yes, that was the reference I was looking for. That was the reference I was looking for.
So, well, anyway, so I finally found the train that I was supposed to be on, or the platform I was supposed to be on, having asked many people in booths where to go, and they looked at me like I was stupid, which it was a fair comment, I suppose, in the time. And sat in my train, showed my free ticket, and I sat back and thought, wow, this is a lovely train. It was so clean, it was quiet.
This is quite an enjoyable peasant carriage.
And
When's the horse attach?
yeah, and
Where's the butler?
sat back and then watched the world go by, and I thought this was brilliant. And then I opened up my phone, I guess about 10 minutes in, and realised that I was heading at quite some speed towards Leipzig. Which is great if you want to go to Leipzig, but I needed to go the other way, and it took about 20 minutes for it to land at a station. And of course, by the time I got to that station, my Berlin-wide free travel card didn't work. So then I got accosted by some chap who wanted money off me. So then I got back on the other train, got to where I wanted to go, because the show was in the evening, so I wanted to go to Checkpoint Charlie just to see what it was like. Turns out it's just a road full of Americans, but I think that was the whole point of it anyway. And then went to the Classic Remise, and they had this wonderful show. They had armed security guards, which was bizarre, but the kind of about 200 people in all treated to a lovely sort of meal and flashing lights and sound systems. And we had a chappie talk about Japanese sword technology. It was just an amazing night. And then it went on till 2 a.m. in the end. And I did some interviews with Damien and a couple others. And then got an Uber, the most dangerous Uber in the world, back to this slightly crummy hotel next to the airport. And then got to 5 o'clock flight the following morning, so I had about 2 hours kip. Got to the airport, and all the security machines, apart from 2, had broken. So the queue was going out the front. I arrived on time and would have made it if it wasn't for lots of other tourists jumping the queue. And I got very angry and a bit British, and I did firm words and frowning in order to get onto the plane. And most embarrassing, an Irish girl pushed past me violently to get on and said, I'm going to miss my plane otherwise. And then,
Like the exact same thing that happened to me in Milan then.
not far off.
When I was pushed in front of because she was going to miss her flight, and then she sat next to us.
Yeah, and exactly that. And she sat next to me, and she sort of looked sheepish and said, sorry, but I didn't want to miss the flight. And I was like, same flight as me, sunshine. So again, that was frowning and firm words. But anyway, so that was Soft 99 launch.
Who's this frowning out there?
Frowning, it's a friend of mine. And
She's a friend of yours. Mrs. Bit of a German joke there.
Bit of a German joke, boom. And so anyway, the Soft 99 thing was pretty sensational. And then cycle forward to, 3-4 months ago, I was down in Haynes Museum where they were doing the launch for the new Kujitsu ceramic coating. And that was an interesting one. Slightly, it was sort of lower. It wasn't as fancy, so to speak, as the main launch for Fuso Mark II, but it was still a very good day. And this is my point, is that they're putting money into it. They said that the European branch was spending lots of time and effort and money with quite a decent sized team just to get the product through EU regulation.
Well, I think it was quite sad, the situation with Jack over here, because he basically built the brand in the UK from nothing.
Yes.
We'd never heard of it. And he did a lot of really good work. He absolutely smashed the hobby market. But
Nice chap as well.
Yeah, really nice guy. But unfortunately, you know, it's one of those things where business is business.
There's powers outside of this control.
Yeah, business is business, and you know, Soft 99 clearly saw that they needed a large operation in Europe because of the
potential revenue.
Yeah, because of the revenue that's there.
And they don't want to go to America.
Demand, that's the word I was looking for. Because of the demand in Europe, they needed a full operation here. So it is really sad, and it kind of all ended pretty badly. But, you know, sort of emotions aside, it looks like Soft 99 are piling massive resources into building the European supply network.
They're going to become a big deal. And there's lots of really interesting stuff that I learned on the various days. And we'll be writing about it in the magazine as well, about the Japanese detailing market, as well as everything else. So, for example, 70% of cars in Japan, is it 60 or 70% of cars on the road in Japan today have a ceramic coating on? Now, compare that to the UK or anywhere in Europe, and I think it's going to be more than double the next highest place.
Do any of them have wax oil underneath yet, though?
Cars don't rot in Japan. They only rot when they land here.
Well, they do. I mean, they don't use salt on the roads, but their climate, Japan's got a wildly different climate. But if you go up to the north, it's like Scotland. You go down to the south, it's...
Yeah, but you can get like a 1993 Sylvia that's absolutely brand new. And then it lands in the UK, and it's a pile of cornflakes after about 6 months.
Yeah, well, they don't undercoat. They use a different undercoat for JDM cars. So the first thing, when you're importing a good JDM car, like, any Subaru, the first thing you do is...
So how would you know about importing a good JDM car?
I haven't imported
He's read
JDM
about it in
car.
books, Ian.
Yes, you've missed out a word I noticed on that.
I imported a good JDM car. And to be honest, all the reason why it's not working currently is due to what we did in England to it. But yeah, so that is something to consider. But the testing and everything products go through is amazing. But anyway, we've talked enough about Soft 99.
Incidentally, just for those of you listening in colour, the Bakerloo line is brown.
Ah, right, okay.
Bakerloo.
Bakerloo.
You can tick that one off your list now.
There we go. Useless fact of the day.
See, I actually love driving in London. I consider it.
Hey,
like
do you
a war
want
zone.
a useless BMW fact of the day?
Yeah,
You can just call them BMW facts, it's fine.
So BMW's first car was actually an Austin 7.
Yeah,
built under license.
Yeah, no.
Built under license from Dixie, who was building it under license from Austin. Yeah. So it was a third-hand Austin 7. How terrible is that?
It's incredibly useless and incredibly depressing that I already knew that.
Where are Swiss Facts these days? There's a brand that I haven't heard much about recently.
By the look of it, they've been taken back on by HQ over on the continent with a sales rep in this country that it looks like they're focusing much more on the consumer market, and there's not a lot of push, if any, for the professional side of it at the moment.
Well, I think the sort of strategy that Reap took to open their centres, which I thought was a great idea. You know, there's definitely... I think there's always been a market to have a national service a national brand
for the service
side of detailing. You know, like QuickFit. You know, QuickFit, ATS, all those sorts of places originally would have been one shop.
Yeah.
So I think it was a great strategy, but I'm just not sure how it affected the authorised detailer network when the people that were managing Swiss Facts started putting themselves all over.
Chinese walls around.
Yeah, but it's weird. I mean, I was Swiss Facts approved in, I don't know, some time ago. Television was still colour, but it was a while ago.
Pre-HD.
Maybe. It might have been
It must have been around, 209 or 210, something like that?
Yeah, so... Yeah, 2010 maybe, 2010, 2011.
And it was a big deal in those days. When you went on,
it was a massive deal. It cost us an absolute fortune. It was a full two-day assessment course. And then at the end of it, we had to buy a load of products as well before we could leave with the certificates. And then
full master detailer kit, wasn't it?
Yeah. So it was a massive deal back then. And it opened loads of doors for us. We did a load of work for Tipec in Cheshire. We met loads of sort of performance car dealers that started sending us detailing work purely on the back of the brand.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that really had value to it back then.
And it's missing from today's detailing market. I mean, with so many more approvals than there were, but none of them quite have the cachet of what Swissfax had that in those days.
Well, it was like the old Zymol approval. That was the pinnacle, wasn't it?
That was even more expensive from what I heard.
I've got to learn not to nod on podcasts.
Are we allowed to say Zymol?
I don't know. Well, we'll find out.
Yeah, because I know there was some
Well, in the past,
spooky stuff going on social media recently, wasn't there? Where somebody
well, it wasn't social media, was it? I mean, it was on a DW forum that in the old days, if you typed out the word, it would then just sort of disappear. Or so there was it was banned.
I thought somebody
hashtag where it took out the second letter or something like that, replaced it with the star. No, it was Martin that.
Yeah, I think Martin shared a post recently, and
they retweeted it.
Yeah, they retweeted it, so I think they might be back on.
Yeah, no, I think the doors are back open and it's sort of back into.
But again, I mean, what happened to their wild ceramic coating that they came out with? The one that looked like a bottle of,
well, it was
like French liqueur.
Yes.
What happened to that?
Was it Zymol that brought out the electric car?
Yeah, they bought a specific. What was it called? Ion, a specific coating for electric cars.
Not even a coating; it was just a spray sealant.
Oh, spray sealant.
Yeah, it was in one of the Febreze aerosol bottles.
Well, I was always slightly confused by the Royale wax, specifically for one model of Bugatti, which I think there are only 4 or 5 ever in existence.
Yeah, but you bought that because you had the money.
It's like bringing out a wax that is only for millionaires.
Yeah, and they'd buy it because it's just for millionaires.
Do you remember there was that app out on the Apple Store, really around about iPhone 4 time, which was £999, and it didn't do anything.
It just sat there.
It was just I can waste.
Well, do you remember
£1,000
Vertu phones that were basically a Nokia 5110 inside? Not 5110, but like a Nokia 3210.
Yeah.
But it had all precious gems on the circuit boards. Everything was
crystal.
Platinum, titanium.
Yes.
And they were like 35 grand. Mm-hmm. But it was exactly the same as a 3210 inside.
And the thing is, they took a 3210, covered it in diamonds, and it was actually more destructible than a 3210 in its natural state.
You can use a 3210 as a brake pad if you ever get stuck.
I've actually seen 3210s built into brick walls as the supporting structure. They're the keystone.
And it broke the brick walls. It's the only thing known to man that can actually counteract Chuck Norris.
There is a big trend for having something for the sake of being able to go down the pub and say, I bought a £1,000 pot of wax. So, the problem I have is that even if I'm using Colonite 476, sometimes the wax I'm putting on the car is worth more than the car itself. But it's
only if you take it out of the glove box first.
So there is a cachet to that, and ultimately it's a sign of good branding, strong brand, isn't it? If you can create that sort of an aurora around it. I mean, if you look at the fancy designer clothing and trainers and all that, people are paying hundreds, if not thousands, of pounds for things that have a cost price. Even if you take into account R&D, have a cost price in 2 figures. I mean, I remember back in a previous life when I was working from a manufacturer point of view, and it was we worked out that we couldn't put any more than about 80 quid's worth of raw ingredients into a 250ml tub of wax if we wanted to, and that was using the very best of everything. So to then say that a wax costs £3,000 was a bit laughable.
I think Dom's come out before and said they worked out about £100 worth of raw ingredients was the maximum they could squeeze into a.
Well, the thing is though with Royale is that I think the Swarovski case was $3,500.
Yeah.
So packaging. What you were actually paying for, it was free refills for life.
But there was
as long as you owned it. So if you sold it on, it wouldn't get free refills.
Wasn't there a refill
anymore.
charge though? It was
just like postage. It was like €100 or something.
Yeah.
But if you considered that, you were more paying for a service and
if you keep it for a good few generations, then it will pay off.
Yeah, whether or not they still do that, I don't know. But they seem to be working in the background quietly in the UK. Well, they're trying to sort of do some stuff, aren't they?
Yeah, they're in retail. They're in Halfers, we mentioned in previous podcast.
Swissfax?
No, Zymol.
Oh, no, we're not talking about Zymol.
Oh, right, my bad.
No, Swissfax. Yeah, the Swissfax.
One thing I do know is they are redeveloping the website.
The main
website, which will then filter down onto the local country website. So I think that's probably their first step in maybe a bit of a relaunch, rebrand, a refresh of the
and it's, I always sort of sing the praises of Swiss Facts.
I love Swiss Fact stuff.
Yeah. The thing is,
It's very pretentious to say, but
I like Swiss Facts for its entirety. Mm-hmm. So for sort of comparative waxes, there are others. 185 quid for a best of show, you can probably find one that's cheaper. But you're not buying into the pot of wax, you're also buying into the brand. It's like, a Casio edifice will tell the time exactly. In fact, a Casio edifice will tell time better than a Rolex Perpetual Oyster. But you buy...
Is that the black one you used to have in school that you squeeze it and it lit up green?
No, that's like the Casio 799 one.
But the G-Shocks aren't cheap. I thought I was going to
get... that's because of fad, isn't it? They've come back in fashion.
Yeah, I don't pay any more than £20 for a watch.
No, but the edifice is quite a nice sort of a Breitlingy type looky chronograph. But they tell the time better than a Rolex. Mm. But you buy a Rolex for 16.5 grand, A, because it's made out of precious metals, not 16.5 grand's worth, but B, because you're buying into Rolex, you're buying into being a brand.
Yeah, I always thought Swiss Facts was like Rolls Royce, and I appreciate if I'm sitting in, it's nice, but I'd never trade in my Subaru for a Rolls Royce.
No, I'll have to disagree though.
Okay,
I'll have to disagree because if you've ever been in a Rolls Royce,
which I have,
you get every penny of that.
And there's not a lot that I wouldn't trade your Subaru in for.
I'd trade your Subaru in for a lift home.
Away from the Subaru. With Swiss Facts as well, the other thing I'll always say about them is that they are easy to use. Now, that's not such a massive thing from a consumer point of view, but when you're a detailer using them in daily work, the waxes... There is never any smearing. There's never any problem buffing them off, or at least nothing that I've experienced.
The only one that I will probably single out is the.
If you say
clean,
barn,
it was the cleaner
wax.
What was it called?
The cleaner wax.
Cleaner fluid.
Cleaner fluid.
Cleaner fluid grey.
The Pro one.
The Pro one. That was really greasy.
Yeah. Again, it's if you're using that. I think using that by hand doesn't work as well. But just using it as a prep before putting the wax on.
The hand one was the chocolate sauce, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That was chocolate sauce. What are Dodo Juice up to these days, Bert? You keep in touch with Dom? How's it going on?
Well, I've been a lifelong Dodo fan.
Me too, actually.
They're just very cool. I mean, I don't know. For me, I can see the challenge because when they came out, the market was small. They were about the first genuine enthusiast product with funky styling, funky everything. They've got loads of business and branding and marketing awards. I mean, Dom is a marketing genius. PJ has got a graphic design ability that
PJ likes to antagonise brands, doesn't he?
Oh, they're disruptors, and they were disruptors from the very start. They were disruptors, and for example, their early crusade was against people saying it was 100% Carnauba when it wasn't, and stuff like that. And so they carried on like that, and their products, I mean, I still use the products today. They're really, I enjoy them for my skill level, which is not admittedly particularly high, but at where I'm at, they work for me. And the thing that concerns me, though, is that they were new, hip and trendy, but now they're the orthodox. Now they're established. They've been around since, I think, 2006, 2007, something like that. And so they're suddenly the old school. And with so many new school brands coming around with social influencers backing up left, right, centre and all kind of living on the social media 30-second life cycle, how are they going to compete? Because their branding is too far out for old stodgy people who like kind of squares and very traditional kind of autoglim Swiss Fact style branding. But it's also not new and wacky enough for the kids who can't pull their trousers up properly.
I think the one thing that's always going to keep Dodo Juice relevant is the no bull attitude.
Yes.
They never go down the route of, look what this will do. It's like, this is what it is. It's great. Buy it.
Well,
it's as simple as that.
Yeah, I agree with it on a macro scale. On a micro scale, I worked for Dom, as it happened, at Castle Combe one day about 4 or 5 years ago, because I think one of his staff members had got ill after a curry or something, and I needed to take over last minute. And I knew nothing. I knew nothing of the products and stuff like that. I knew enough to talk about my favourites, but I certainly didn't know pricing and all the rest of it. And all these people coming up, and they were schooling me. Their client base is so loyal, and because it's Dom and PJ and Andy and all those guys are the ones doing the shows during the season, day in, day out, they actually build a rapport with the customers, and I really enjoyed the time, doing that show. But I think there is a very loyal following, and there are quite a few Facebook groups for them, and internationally they're very strong as well, particularly in certain parts of Europe and stuff. So no, I really hope to see it kind of resurge, but I think they are at risk from the young, trendy pop-up brands that are appearing every second, and how you compete with that is difficult.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with that though is that, the long game to play, which is what they're doing, is to realise that all these new brands come and go. I mean, we could probably sit here for an hour and mention every new brand that has appeared in the last 6 years, and we could mention all of the ones that have disappeared in the last 6 years, and we'd fill a podcast with it.
I agreed, but the problem is you get the, on the one hand, you could call them early adapters, the people who are, can we call brand whores? I think people who will go from one to the next, to the next, to the next.
Yeah, brand hoppers is probably a nicer phrase.
That is a nicer phrase, agreed. So there's a certain portion of the market who will only ever buy something if it's new or special or different, rather than finding something that works and sticking with it, which is kind of what old people like I do.
The problem is, though, there's a fine line. There's a real sweet spot of the two, and that's still looking at new products and trying new products and seeing where they fit into your repertoire. And if you pick a good brand, you'll never need to replace anything, but you still need to go out there and try the new stuff.
That is very true. And actually, in terms of pioneering, I mean, they did Ferrolube, so clay lube with fallout remover. They did.
I was going to say, you go on with things like Ferrolube, but that's one of. If they have got a failure, they don't shout about their products enough, or that it doesn't get broadcast. You look back. I was a Dodo reseller in 2011, 2012.
The wheel guards, the hoses.
Yeah, wheel guards.
Yeah.
I think I had 5 sets of those sitting on the shelf for a good couple of years, and ended up popping them on eBay in the end just to sort of clear off some space. And you're looking at, and those wheel guards, wherever they are ahead of their time in some cases, and sometimes they just make products which are fantastic, but they just don't get the attention that a lot of the scene.
They're before their time. And nut plugs, I love nut plugs. Yeah. I've got God knows how many sets, and again, even their clay sort of finger mitts for the clays. I use
just those who don't know, nut plugs are a little tool to clean out the hole for your wheel nuts.
The lug
holes.
Yeah.
Clean out your lug holes. Well, I had PJ got upset with me recently.
What happened? The wind change.
Well, directly related to what we've just said. My dad was looking for a new supplier for ceramic coatings. He went with CarPro in the end. But I was chatting to PJ about something, and I said that I'd switched my dad to CarPro, and he was quite upset that I hadn't spoken to him about the Dodo Juice ceramic coating.
The supernatural range. Yeah.
Quite honestly, I didn't even know they had one, and it wasn't because I don't follow the brand, because I do follow the brand. I mean the Dodo World Facebook group, I follow them on Facebook and everything, and I hadn't seen anything about it, and PJ wasn't very happy with me.
And you do know
I must admit.
I remember that being launched, and there was a bit of we're doing this because people have been asking us for a ceramic coating. This is a good ceramic coating if you really want it, but we also do a lot of other good products, so try those first. But the ceramic coating's there if you really want it. If you don't want it, don't worry about it. But if you do want it, there wasn't that massive push. Look at what we've got, ceramic coating, bang bang.
Yeah, and they had the opportunity. They came in a long time before quite a lot of the other more common ones now.
Yeah. Well, the first detailing brand glass sealant that I got hooked on was Dodo Juice Supernatural.
Yeah, me too.
I tried, like we were saying on the other podcasts, Rain-X was our sort of staple diet for years. Tried G-Technic G1. I've just found it too much hard work. And then we became Dodo approved, and I was like, oh, I'm going to try some of this Supernatural. It was awesome. It was the first sort of long to medium term glass sealant.
Easy on, easy off.
It was mega. It was really good.
And
it still is.
Well, now they're almost forming. I think I might be completely wrong, but I think they're kind of going in full reverse. So remember Carbon Collective, wax is dead ethos of the whole kind of, you don't need a wax anymore because we've got ceramic coatings. I've seen a bit of motion from Dodo, which is a bit of kickback, saying ceramic coatings, they're fly by night, they'll be gone soon, everybody will be screaming out for good old fashioned carnauba wax in the future. So I think it's almost like a battle of ethos.
Yeah, but it could also be similar to people our age who go out and desperately try and find mini disc players and mini discs.
True.
There's a possibility
it becomes
of
nostalgia
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I hope not. I hope that we do see it, because I think that it's like a real. We chatted about it on the podcast. A couple of episodes ago, we all said that we'd go for a wax in the summertime.
Yeah.
I think the romance is kind of quite.
Wait, you're talking about cars?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, not bikini
You have
lines.
to retract your comments too.
Not bikini lines. Yeah, who else have we got? Kosh Chemi, what are they up to?
I remember
Slims are the importer in the UK.
they are, and
I think there's something going on, bigger picture at headquarters, to be honest.
at Koch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it seems like the 1K Nano thing was a massive hype. There was a massive push, and then it just sort of stopped.
They were internally sold though, weren't they?
It went around in circles a bit. So
I think because there was
Because
family owned. It was family
the
owned.
brother and sister basically.
Well, I think
inherited
the sister was very poorly.
yeah,
I think the sister was very poorly, or the brother was very poorly, and I think it kind of affected the sort of
the
hierarchy at the top.
I mean, when they came, I remember when they first landed, and I saw the first ones come through, and the products were all good, and but then I looked at the kind of the German presence, and they're kind of like the Auto Glim of Germany in a way, in that they're not considered super exclusive or particularly,
the
very
main bread
mainstream.
and butter of Koch Chemi's business is dealership stuff. They
Yeah.
do or did a hell of a lot of stuff for BMW, for Mercedes.
So if you, I'm not sure if it's still the same now, but if you go into a BMW dealership and you can buy BMW detailing products or cleaning products, and it's all obviously Koch Chemi.
Yeah.
There's literally no getting around it.
They're mostly Gardex over in this country. I think over on the continent they are Koch.
Over here I think it's Gardex now. Well, the protection packages are Gardex.
Yeah,
But the
BMW
BMW AG supplied cleaning products used to be Koch Chemi.
Yeah. Well, I remember when they.
That's why the font.
And they supply a
The
lot
font is the same font on both BMW products and Koch Chemi.
Oh, okay.
They look identical. I'll try and track some down of the old stuff and.
But again, what we were saying earlier about other companies making products for each other, we know quite a lot of companies that Koch Chemi make the polishes for.
Yeah,
under SP.
Yeah, I mean,
under
Koch
Pyrex.
Chemi, in my opinion, are probably the best.
So the Mac Daddies of making the polishes.
Of manufacturing polish, and all of our favourite polishes are manufactured, and they're not formulated by, but they're manufactured by Koch Chemi, because the equipment required to produce a machine polish is obscenely expensive.
Yeah.
So if you see like a small white label brand saying we bring out our own machine polish, they'll need 500 grand's worth of mixing and paddle equipment to get that right.
Yeah. And
So-
they need to make massive batches to be able to sell it.
So even the biggest companies will go and buy their polish, or they'll go and have their polish formulated at one of the big houses like Scholl, Zonax,
Yeah.
3M.
And even what we call non-white label companies, so people who actually make most of their products will at the very least buy the abrasives in and then do some of the blending themselves. So
They'll never tell you though.
No.
They'll never tell you. But we know it happens. We've spoken to guys within that sector of the industry, the sort of procurement
yes.
sector, and we know it happens.
Yeah.
It exists, but
Network.
they'll never advertise it.
Well, I remember when Koch first came over here and talking to Chris McDonald, who ran Repan Swissfax, aforementioned at the time, and he was explaining the process to become the UK Koch Chemi side. They had to spend a week or two out there basically selling themselves to show that they were worthy to bring in Koch. Because when it first came, I thought, why the hell haven't we seen this earlier? Because these were really, really strong, and there's not a weak product in the range. And Ditto with the 1K Nano, that really had its place. It was a bit different. It's not quite ceramic coating. But it's a bit more than the kind of stuff that you'd have at home. And it was a real strong, and we ran the approved sort of network for it initially, and we were promised a lot of support and backup and stuff that never quite materialized, and then it went over to Slims and stuff. But they've got, particularly under the Slims and the Morelli umbrella, there is a real potential with a bit of time, investment, and energy to turn it into, such a premium brand over here. Such a, not a premium necessarily, but a successful brand, shall we say.
Yeah, prominent brand.
Yeah, and certainly if somebody said to me, right, you can only detail with one brand of products from now until the end of time, Koch Me would be in the shortlist for me. Not sure it'd be the winner, but it would be in the shortlist.
For one that covers every base, yeah. I can see that.
Yeah,
every base. Enough bases.
Most bases.
They have, but this is the other thing, is that when it first came to the UK, it wasn't the whole range. And then we latterly got quite a lot of the other products. So they've got a dedicated Alcantara cleaner. They've got a liquid hard wax, it's like radiant wax, like the old AG stuff, and various other products that are unheard of. And it was only when we did the mega test that people started hearing about FSE. Nobody was talking about FSE before we did the mega test. And it won hands down for the kind of the cleaning element and water spot removal element of the quick detailer test. And then stocks ran dry in every reseller on the land. And I remember getting called from a big reseller, not the biggest, but a big reseller in our little industry niche, almost shouting at me saying, why didn't you give me a heads up about this? We've sold out, everybody's asking for it, they're all pointing towards the magazine and I can't sell it to them. It's these things need shouting about. And I think that's part of our role as well, getting a bit more existential. Our role partly is to find, cut through a bit of the BS, find the golden nuggets and, help get that out so that products that are worth their salt, so to speak, are actually commercially successful as well as chemically effective.
So on that note then, what brands do we think are worth watching? Any brands that are sort of appearing? I mean, it's 2020 is probably the worst year for a brand to approach the market and appear.
To approach the professional market, home enthusiasts, they've got a lot of time on their hands at the moment.
Well, any that you think are worth a watch? I mean, I've got a couple.
Yeah, well, I'm going to put my hand up here and say Sansom, simply because I know the guy, or met the guy at Wax Talk a couple of years ago who's behind it. He was behind a shopping channel product, big volume product going to sort of, I think, lonely housewives at 3 a.m. And so he knows that part of the market very well, but he really wanted to create a prosumer product for the keen enthusiast who knew what they're talking about, a kind of a premium product. And he put a lot of effort into the R&D. I did some consultation work with him. And now some very well-respected detailers are putting their name behind it as well. It's in with Ultimate Finish and various other resellers. I think it's one that's really going to grow. So that's where, if I was a betting man, that's a place that I'd put my money.
Well, I think for me, especially after our visit to Milan, I think still, I was talking about Labo a couple of years ago. I think still Labo Cosmetica is going to be a heavyweight in this industry.
They've got the legs.
Yeah, and, the time that we spent with their chemists and stuff, these guys aren't messing around. They've got the backing from the parent company, which is Mafra, which is, I think it's been in business for 50 years.
Yes, family run, and
family
I think
50
the
years.
grandson is currently running it. So
yeah, they've got experience in car wash. Their main business has been car wash chemicals for years, and now they've got this sort of new project, which is Labo Cosmetica, and we struggle to fault it at the moment.
Yeah. The only thing I would say that's kind of holding Labo back is trying to translate over what each of the products actually does on the bottle, because we've got fantastic, interesting names and things. But it's quite hard to reach and say, that's what it does. Think like Kronos.
Yeah, Kronos, Veritas.
If you didn't know what Kronos did, what would you think it does?
Watches.
No idea.
I was going to think it would be a time shift.
Exactly. For cleaning the carbon off your exhaust. It's fantastic products, but there just needs to be, they don't need to change the name, they just need to find a way of communicating exactly what each one does, whether that's giving out posters to everybody who buys them just with a conversion chart for...
Yeah, the marketing is very pretty. The labels are high quality. They're all
Fantastic
foil
marketing.
labels. You can open the labels, and if you open on even a small bottle, the label opens about 25 foot and gives you lots of things. It's great for teaching yourself Russian, for example. But the products are strong. And I think bouncing back to Dodo-itis, they've got the same thing. They look at a problem and find a product to solve it rather than look at an existing genre of products. So most companies say, right, we need a shampoo, we need a fallout remover, et cetera, et cetera. They say, we need to clean exhaust pipes, we need to clean bodywork. And they've got 3-4 shampoos. Now, we were in an earlier earlier podcast, extracting the Michael slightly from companies producing sort of half a dozen shampoos that are basically the same, just different colours. But in Labo's case, they were saying, right, this one's mildly acidic, this one's neutral, this one's mildly alkaline, and they've got particular purposes. And I think, certainly for me at least, their explanation was strong, and I thought, nice.
Who else have we got? Revive, that's an interesting brand.
Yes.
One of the members of PVD has recently taken that over.
Yeah.
Very
Not a new brand, but a new a revival of it, as it were.
But I quite like it. It's got that kind of retro-y, Goodwoody sort of
It looks like it should have like a
hipstery.
beard oil free with every.
Yeah, it's got that. It's got that sort of vibe going for it, and I kind of like it. I think it's certainly a very strong image. I think it's certainly got room to market a certain.
It's got a niche. Yeah, it's definitely got a niche, and that was started. I know a bit of the background, and it was started by two actual chemists. So again, it's not just marketing men getting together. And I believe there's certainly a chemist there, and it was the ownership has sort of moved around a little bit, and as a result, it's got some new investment, and they've got real potential as long as they hit the right niche. And I think the products are strong, and I think everything is on point. So yeah, that's definitely one to watch in 2020, 2021.
And then the last one, I think, is probably Zirconite, which I'm going to hand over to you because you've been speaking to them quite a lot recently, haven't you?
Yeah, well, because Zirconite is a sub-brand of Concept Chemicals. So Concept do things like Expert 60, and they've got a whole lot of other range of different sort of branded products, as well as their own Concept Chemicals bulk range.
And they've been a massive body shop supplier for years.
Exactly.
Because I remember seeing, I think I saw Concept back in sort of early 2001 at a huge insurance body shop in Manchester, and it was all Concept Chemicals.
Yeah.
The whole Valetin Bay, all of the sort of post-work waxes and everything was all silicon-free Concept.
Yeah, it's all big companies. It's like these big companies we never heard of, like Tetrasil, for example, guys buying T-Cut and all the rest of it, or Nielsen Chemicals, big old companies, but you don't necessarily see them in our sort of enthusiast world so much. So yeah, Zirconite, they're focusing on the ceramic protection side. They're definitely one to kind of focus on and have a look at and give a try out. I know they're looking to expand their professional network as well. But anyway, I think for the sake of this podcast, we're going to call it a day and we're going to wrap it up. And we're going to touch on some of the topics we mentioned earlier in a future podcast to spread it out so you can have us in little doses, which is how everybody says they want us. But anyway, it is goodbye from me.
And I.
And me.
And we will speak soon, I'm sure. Thank you very much for listening, and goodbye.